Welcome to the Vegan Pulse. I am your host, Nancy Arenas. Today, my guest is Donny Moss. Donny is a New York City-based animal rights activist who runs local campaigns and produces videos for theirturn.net. In 2008, Donny made the award-winning film Blinders, which documents New York City's controversial horse-drawn carriage trade. From 2009 to 2013, he led a successful campaign to end the political career of an elected official running for mayor who blocked animal protection legislation for 8 years. In May 2015, he launched a grassroots campaign to compel the New York Blood Center to pay for the care of 66 chimpanzees who they abandoned with no water or food on islands in Liberia. That campaign ended May 2017 when the organization made a $6 million contribution to pay for the lifelong care of the chimps. Stick around. I want to introduce him to you. Hi, Donny. How are you?
Hi. Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us on the Vegan Pulse today. I
Thank you for
appreciate it.
having me. Yeah, thanks for having me.
And you are situated in my hometown, New York.
Come see us sometime.
I want to, and I will.
More vegan stuff than when you left, I imagine.
Oh, I'm sure you do. And I was there right before COVID during that, what was it, the polar blast you had several years ago?
Yes.
And the only good thing that happened was that I was in Manhattan and I found a vegan sushi place somewhere around, I think it was like 37th, 35th Street. And
Beyond Sushi is heavenly.
there it is. It's still there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Then I'm coming back.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your journey into veganism.
Okay. So it was 2004, and I went on my second date with my now husband to see Super Size Me. Do you remember that movie about that guy who ate nothing but McDonald's for a month, and like by the end of the month he was like 3/4 deceased? Anyway, that movie, for whatever reason, had a bigger impact on me than it did on most other people, and it led me to read the book Fast Food Nation. And I don't remember what it was about that book that made me do it, but I cut out land animals after reading that book. I don't know if it was just the sanitary issues in slaughterhouses or if there were humane issues, but I just said after that book, I'm not going to eat, land animals, but I was still eating fish, dairy, and eggs. About a year later, I'm living in London, and I stumble upon a vegetarian festival at my local library. I go in for the free samples, and I walk out with a DVD called Meet Your Meat. It was a 12-minute video narrated by Alec Baldwin for PETA about animal agriculture, factory farms, slaughterhouses. I put the DVD in my computer. By the time the 12 minutes was up, I had made a decision to go vegan. And it was a big decision for me. This was 2005. And I wasn't a fruit or vegetable eater. I mean, I ate junk. I ate, pizza and, fish sushi and, just garbage. And I had to very quickly learn how I was going to have like a fully plant-based diet. And at the time, and you weren't vegan quite yet, but there weren't all of these substitutes that we have today. And my palate wasn't particularly sophisticated. So it was a bit of an adjustment. People who make that change now have a much easier time going plant-based. Now it's not even a sacrifice. Back then in 2005, it was a bit of a sacrifice, but there was no sacrifice big enough that I wouldn't have made, because once I saw those videos, there was no turning back. I was prepared to starve, not to have to eat animals. But of course I didn't. And I started eating more healthfully. And what was so interesting, Nancy, is that I didn't do it for health reasons. It wasn't even on my radar screen. But the health benefits became apparent so quickly that I thought, oh my God, there's more to this than just sort of the weight of coming off my shoulders of eating animals from an ethical standpoint. I was like, I'm physically feeling better.
So Donny, I totally could see where you're coming from, because I didn't do it for health reasons either. I did it for the animals, right? And the benefits that came I wasn't even expecting them. They just hit me. And it was like it just an added perk of doing the
Right.
right thing ethically and morally for the animals.
Actually remember specifically when I started to first feel the health benefits. It was probably a few days after making the full switch to plants. And I was jogging in Hyde Park, and I was thinking something feels different. I feel like I'm levitating. I feel like I'm not on, I feel like I'm like running above the ground, not on it. And I had that sensation for a few days. And it occurred to me that it was because I guess a plant-based diet is high in fiber and you're going to the bathroom more. And I didn't have all that gunk in my system, all that dairy and meat and the stuff that takes a lot longer to digest. And that was what it was. And I lost all of this weight really quickly. And it was just great. And, this was before really there was much in the way of public discourse about the environmental benefits of going vegan. These documentary films, Cowspiracy and Seaspiracy, they came much later. And I just didn't have my finger on the pulse of the environmental impact of consuming animals. And now we know, of course, that animal agriculture is a leading contributor to species extinction and deforestation and ocean dead zones and greenhouse gas emissions. I mean, it's just so awful for the planet to produce animals for consumption and to slaughter them. And so that's, now there's yet another reason for people to go vegan. And I think that people are going vegan for that reason today. I mean, you hear young people saying that. Some people do it for health reasons, some people do it for environmental reasons, and some people do it for the reasons that we did, is because we learned about what happens to the animals and wanted no part of that.
Right. And, and the other thing is not only, like you said, because of the devastation to our land, our water, and our air, but human deaths. It contributes to human deaths. With all
right. Pandemics. Oh, we wouldn't have had COVID if people didn't consume animals, right?
Right.
SARS, MERS, avian flu, swine flu,
Mad
mad
cow
cow.
disease.
All of these things come from consuming animals, and it's like people aren't connecting the dots. I mean, how much easier do we have to make it? It's called swine flu and avian flu. We had an avian flu outbreak in a New York City live animal market. You know what was so crazy? At the beginning of the pandemic, when the city shut down and only essential businesses were allowed to remain open, the wet markets were designated as essential businesses. The very kind of market that got us into this mess was still open. It was surreal. And it seems like, until there's like a mass death that comes out of a New York City wet market, these markets are going to continue to exist. It's so strange. We're so dumb.
It is so dumb. It's like you're telling people, hey, look, here are the facts, here are the reports, here are the findings. We need to end animal agriculture. And you know what they're all thinking? Oh, well, maybe if we put mask on the cows, maybe if we potty train the cows, maybe if we give them sea kelp. It's like, come on, stop trying to find a way to continue this nonsense. We just have to end it. That's all.
And it's not even hard. That's what's so weird. For the individual who's making the switch from animals to plants, it's not hard. We have burgers now. We have cheese. We have eggs. We have all fish. We have all of the things that you and I ate before we made this switch. We can eat again, but without the cruelty and without the environmental devastation and without the negative impact on our health. It's just so dumb that people can't make this switch. People don't like change.
Yeah, that's it. People don't like change. But I want to go back to 1 second to something you said before about when you were running, how you came to know that you felt a couple of days later after you started eating in a healthier way, in a vegan way. I could pinpoint the time and date where I also knew something like that was happening to me. I remember it was a month, 30 days to the date that I went vegan. And I remember waking up, sitting up on my bed, and my partner said, because I wasn't moving, I was just sitting up, and he says, "Something wrong? What's going on?" And I'm like, I have no pain. I think
Oh my
something was
God.
wrong because I have fibromyalgia and all these things, and they were all gone. And I was like, something must be wrong. And it
Wow.
was the change in the what I was eating. So amazing.
Yeah. Do you remember when Heather Mills McCartney, Paul McCartney's ex-wife, told the story of what happened to her when she went vegan? She had lost a leg, I guess in an accident, and the skin where I guess the cut took place wasn't healing. I guess it was getting infected, and I think that she was in a horrible place. And then she made the switch to a plant-based diet and a new layer of skin grew.
Wow. I didn't hear
Yeah.
that, but that's an awesome story. I'm going to,
And my husband had a condition called pityriasis rosea, which is sort of, I don't know, he describes it as sort of some unexplained rash all over his body, and it wouldn't go away. And this was not long after I went vegan, and he hadn't gone vegan, and he went vegan. Maybe as an experiment, or maybe it was just a coincidence, but that he went vegan at the time that he had this condition, and the condition went away after having it for weeks. It vanished. So there's got to be something to it, right? These plants are filled with nutrients, and animal products are filled with cholesterol and saturated fat and hormones and antibiotics and pesticides and who knows what else.
unbelievable. Soon, soon. I mean, it's got to happen. So whether they like it, I say it, whether kicking or screaming or just joining us peacefully, the whole world is going to have to go vegan because we can't sustain animal agriculture because it's going to kill everything. I mean,
Yeah.
money and air can't compare. Money and water can't compare. So,
Yeah, but how bad does it have to get, Nancy, before people are willing to make what we know is no longer even a sacrifice? I mean, we do have cultured meat on the horizon. We don't know when, but if this cultured meat, with meat grown in a lab, but without all of the horrible things associated with meat, including the cruelty, that could be a solution
right.
for humans and for companion animals. People are going to continue to feed their animals. Even people who are plant-based or vegan continue to feed their cats, fish, and other animals. Well, this will be an incredible solution when it comes to fruition.
Yes. And it is. I believe that this month they're going to start there's a store somewhere that's going to start selling cultured meat. I forgot where it was, but
Yeah.
I just read that. So let's talk about theirturn.net and what you do.
Great. So when I saw the light back in 2005 and became vegan, I was living in London at the time, as I said, and I went to my first I went to my first fur protest, and it was a fur protest at Harrods, the department store. And, I think for a lot of activists, it's in our DNA, it's in our wiring. Like, I felt like I belonged there. It was like very natural for me to participate in a protest, even though I had never done it before. And when I moved back to the US in 2006, one of the first campaigns that I worked on was the campaign to ban horse-drawn carriages from the streets of New York City. And I went to a lot of the protests and did the outreach. And then one day I picked up a video camera, despite having no experience, and said, I want to make a little documentary about this because it hasn't been done. And so one thing led to another, one interview led to another with an expert, with accident witnesses, and I ended up making a 50-minute made for TV documentary called Blinders: The Truth Behind the Tradition. And to my surprise, it was really well received, and Alec Baldwin hosted a screening in New York City, and it was aired on a TV channel called the Documentary Channel, and I did the festival circuit, and it was wonderful because the message about the cruelty of horse-drawn carriages reached a much wider audience, and it's still today a tool that's used to educate the public about why we need to ban horse-drawn carriages. Of course, we haven't banned them yet, and so we still have work to do, but we're making progress. Anyway, so since that time, I've slowly wiggled my way out of my full-time work, which was in public affairs, and have, saved some money, and I've been able to do animal rights stuff full time for the past several years. And so I work on many campaigns. So Their Turn is a website in which I report on animal rights news, mostly in New York City, mostly campaigns in New York City, some of which I work on. And I make videos for the website. I started in 2014, I think, on Their Turn with just written stories, and then Jane Velez Mitchell, who used to be a CNN anchor and is now a full-time animal rights sort of media icon, encouraged me to do video. And so now I edit videos, short, powerful videos that will sort of cut through the clutter on social media. And so I run campaigns, and then I write stories and produce videos in support of those campaigns and in support of other campaigns that other groups work on. For example, we had a bull riding event at Madison Square Garden last weekend. So I went there, I participated in the protest, I documented what I saw, I made a 2-minute video, put it online to help augment the message that the activists were delivering right there. It's one thing to reach, people who are entering Madison Square Garden. It's another thing to reach tens of thousands more through video. Right. And so at any given time, I'm working on a campaign or two. And so that sort of encapsulates what I do with Their Turn.
That is so powerful, because you know what they say, a picture can say 1,000 words, kind of a thing. And because when you're talking about it, and everyone's mind is different. So the imagery in their mind is always different. But when you actually see, the footage, when you actually see these animals in these videos or pictures that individuals such as yourself take to expose what's going on, it's a powerful message. I mean, you can't deny what's happening. It can't be, it's just, kind of, that's just the way it's been. And that's the worst thing that one can say, because that is one of the most horrid phrases that I know. That's the way it's always been.
Yeah. One of the challenges we face with social media, and maybe you face this too, is that, more and more the cruelty that we expose with our cameras gets censored. And so you have to find creative ways to get the message out, and to expose the public and educate the public without showing the most violent images, which will be shut down by social media. So on the campaign I'm working on now, which is to compel this animal shelter which has been closed for almost 3 years, to send the animals to shelters that are open, or to foster homes, because the animals have been languishing in cages for all of this time. I take videos of our protests and of reactions from people on the streets, and reactions from people in the neighborhood who said, you know what, I tried to adopt an animal here and they ignored me, or they turned me away, and I thought that was strange, and thank you for being here. And so it's another way to get the message out without actually showing, the violence against animals that might be censored. And what's interesting, Nancy, is I joined, even though I'm 50, I joined TikTok, which I feel like you have to be a lot younger for some reason. And, the videos have gone viral on TikTok so unexpectedly. One of the videos has almost 700,000 views, and one has 400,000 views. You think of influencers and celebrities and, adult film stars getting that kind of, engagement, but these videos are getting a lot of engagement. So I'm super grateful for that. It's harder and harder with all this clutter in cyberspace to get your message across. So any way I could do it, I do.
And that's another thing, we have to support individuals like you. In other words, I always say, when you see these messages that have to do with vegan information, share it, reshare it, and share it. Because, if I put it on my post and nobody else shares it, the analytics also has something to do with it. So we want to continue to share it. I mean, lately I've been closed off from Facebook several times because they didn't like an image I posted, which has to do with violence towards animals, but not really showing violence. So they're getting a little bit, like you said, a little bit ridiculous. They show people who kill animals and like hold them with a trophy with their head up, which is horrible. But a picture with a statement gets banned and blocked. It makes
Yeah.
no sense. But what I was going to say was that we have to support individuals such as yourself who go out and make these videos to expose the truth. And we need to share it so other people can see it. So not only your little group, your community, but all our communities. And therefore, that's the only way that, you know, we're going to get more engagement and people be more aware of what's happening.
You know, when social media first became a thing, you know, with Facebook, I guess was probably one of the first. It was such a gift because mainstream media, as you know, has often ignored the plight of animals, doesn't show what goes on in factory farms and slaughterhouses because who are their advertisers? You know, fast food companies, meat companies, dairy companies. And so social media gave us the opportunity. It was like an end run around the mainstream media in order to educate the public. Oh, YouTube was probably the best example of that. And then those places started to want you to pay, or they started to censor more. And so I feel like we're running up against the same challenges now that we had with the mainstream media back, you know, before social media became a thing. But we'll always find creative ways to get the message out because as activists, we have to.
Right. And social media is what has advanced veganism. I'm almost certain of that because, as you said, the mainstream media doesn't want to post any of these things or print any of these things because obviously they get their money from the people who we're talking about that are adding to the suffering of animals. I just want to say that on your website, there is a little paragraph, and I'm going to say it now because I love it. It says, for decades, animals have been waiting patiently in line behind other marginalized groups fighting for their own rights. With women, African Americans, and LGBTs having achieved major successes in their respective battles for equality and social justice, the nation is shifting its attention to the most marginalized and mistreated group of all, animals. It's their turn. I love that. And you are definitely trying to further the plight of animals.
Yeah, thank you. You know, that's why I called the website Their Turn. And I don't know how compelling a name that is, but I was so frustrated as an activist in the streets trying to do outreach on behalf of animals, having people come up to me and say, you know, what about the children? What about, you know, people in Iraq and Afghanistan? What about this? What about that? And, you know, I always had to say, well, compassion isn't finite. We can care about all of these things.
It's not a piece of pie. It's not a pie, right? A piece of pie.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, when is it going to be their turn? And that's how I came up with the name Their Turn.
I love it. I love it very much. So any words that you want to leave us with for our audience?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, if you care about animals or whatever you care about, you know, one of the things that I learned as an activist is I make the most change for myself and for the animals when I step out of my comfort zone. And it's not fun to do it, but that's how you know you're going to make change when you really push yourself to an area that you're not comfortable. That's where change occurs. Change occurs in the discomfort zone.
Well, thank you for that. That is so totally true. For me, when I first started, I was doing this presentation to this bunch of carnivores, and my partner said, "You're not afraid? You're not afraid that you're just going to get in front of these people?" And I'm like, I'm nervous, but in my mind, I'm thinking of the animals that are dying right now and how they're feeling. And that's way worse than,
exactly.
than my, you know, like, as you said, my comfort zone. So
right.
Thank you, Donny, for being on the Vegan Pulse. I surely appreciate it. And I'll have all your information on the website for people to check out everything you do.
Thanks so much for having me.
Okay. Thank you for joining us on another Vegan Pulse. I am your host, Nancy Arenas. Remember, follow us on Facebook, check out our website, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you have a pulse, you have a purpose. Live vegan.